journey is what we are here to deliver. Our staff for their compassion and commitment, and our partners and communities for your work working so collaboratively with us. And kind of lastly, if you like, in the thank yous to my senior leadership team. Many of you were in the room today, and my exec team, because I couldn't do my job without you. You will often feel that thanks so goes to you. Rightly, you devolve it to the staff, but it takes all of us to make things happen. So our mission, values and ambition, they haven't changed. Our mission is making life better together. Together we are very purposeful about it together, not for you or to you, but actually together with you. And our ambitions and values guide everything that we do. And keeping that laser focus on values at a time when there is so much change and turmoil in turmoil might be the wrong word, I've used it now. Anyway, in the NHS is really important. So using our values as our guiding principles and keeping focused at this challenging times. We are refreshing our strategy later this year, and we're purposeful about it being a refresh. And we really want to involve our community in shaping it, and so there'll be more communication to come in relation to that. One of our favourite slides next, we've got something around the context in which we're operating in. And as I've already said, that challenging times, our mission and values have to stay clear. And the box at the top of our challenges has to be that around the treatment of inequity. Black people are still 4 times more likely to be detained. And we are still committed to making a shift in that area. And acknowledging that's unacceptable. And alongside that, I think it's clear that society's position, sadly, is changing in relation to inclusivity. I wish it was shifting and changing in a positive area. My sense is really sadly it's not. And I can only imagine what it feels like to be in an immigration hotel right now. Or to be living with that real fear. And we need to keep that alive in everything we do as an organisation, and making sure that the equity and the ability to call out good behaviour, but also to call out inequality behaviour, and to, enabled and empowered to act on it is really important. The NHS landscape is changing. Many of you will have seen our new league tables. I'm very happy to talk about those in more detail if anyone would like to have a view on that. But the reality is the public asks for greater scrutiny, and there is definitely greater scrutiny within the NHS, and the transparency with which I support. That transparency needs to come with accurate positions on our trust performance, and so I would encourage anyone who wants to know our position as an organisation to be part of our regular board meetings and to come and ask questions of us in advance. As well as the challenge that I think is really key as around supporting those with serious mental illness alongside those with mental health and wellbeing generally. And mental health provision often gets talked about as that, mental health provision. And there is a real difference in struggling with your mental health and well-being as opposed to having a serious mental illness. And I think that's something that we as an organisation are increasingly talking to our communities about. So moving on to the areas where we have, I think, really, really strong foundations. Anne's raised already our new health and equality plan, and Billy and Mona are going to speak to us about that in a moment. Our length of stay position, well, thank you to our staff and partners in particular for getting us to a position of real improvement around our length of stay. Ashton and Sharon both talk about how we've managed the quality position in relation to this, as well as the performance position. Anyone who walks into our estate, I'm sorry, I still get excited walking down High Street, because the buildings, they represent so much more than just being a building, because they landmark a seismic change about anti-stigma. to me about opening up and breaking down those barriers, and supporting better care, and with that, hopefully addressing the inequalities. Alongside Springfield Village and Springfield Hospital, our development is live and kicking at Tolworth. We can't beat it. It'd be very clean as a good sign, but it was definitely very noisy. And again, I make no apologies for that really, because actually that's going to transition and see people receiving care and treatment in better places. Barnes and Richmond Royal are also both becoming live. And many NHS trusts would highly desire to be in our position, and that's not an easy thing to have delivered. And it's taken a number of people to do that. Our staff experience is improving, our vacancy rates are down, we'll talk a bit more about that. And then we've got the opportunity with the 10-year plan provides us with the 3 shifts, community, digital and prevention. And then the opportunities that the integrated neighbourhood teams really presents for mental health to, again, properly integrate with physical health care so that people with comorbidities receive care and treatment in one place. And alongside that, I'm now the Chief Place Officer for healthcare. A little bit about our trusted numbers. So our 2,900 staff support hundreds of thousands of people annually. The vast majority of our people are supported in the community. So this year we saw 44,000 people in community services, 39,000 people in talking therapies, and we only admitted 1,700 people. Now, those 1,700 people, when you need a bed, when you're in crisis, that really, really matters. And we still have challenges in our pathway. And we still know that we need to do more to be better for people in crisis. And we know that actually within our talking therapies, for example, we have significantly increased our access for our Black, Asian and minority communities in talking therapies. From only 24% of referrals accepted 5 years ago to 28%. And that percentage now reflects the population that we serve. That's an important shift. We still have more to do on people's experience. But actually, each time we make a step forward. Earlier help reduces crisis and reduces those acute conditions. And as we talked about, when you're in inpatient care, it can be a really challenging healing space. It can also be quite frightening. And one of the most significant pieces of work that we were challenged with several years ago by our community was how we're going to make a step change in restrictive practice. And so this year, I'm really delighted we made a 33% reduction in the number of people who were secluded. And of that reduction, a 47% reduction for our Black community and a 40% reduction for our Asian community. So that again is demonstrating that side vision. And we've done even better in relation to prone restraint. Now, even better in relation to prone restraint, I can't believe I'm saying it, because prone restraint is one of the worst things that anybody could possibly go through, actually. It's really frightening. But actually, to be working on it, to be addressing it head on, and to be able to represent that here is an improving picture. Our executive advisory group supports staff and move on. Talk about it. In relation to our executive advisory group, we have really grown this part of our organisation to increase the number of diverse voices at the table. Our executive advisory group is made up of people who support our diversity in decision making, our staff networks, and people with lived experience. It supports myself and the executive team in making better and fairer decisions, and it's truly influenced our annual delivery plans this year and our anti-racism approach to name just a few. We have purposely developed and shaped through the executive advisory group our Making Life Better Together cultural programme. So these are the main strands of the cultural improvement that we'll make. These are not just for staff, they're not just for patients, they're not just for parents, they're for all of us collectively together as a community. And they help us to embed respect, equity and accountability every day. More so than ever, we talk about culture within the NHS. And I want to be clear today about the culture we want to see in our organisation is one where our values guide every action that we take, and where we never walk past behaviour that doesn't reflect them. And my answer to every member of the community is say, if you feel that we're living our values, tell us. If you feel that we're not, then tell us, have a conversation at the time, wherever you can, so that we can bring it even what brighter light. So I guess my answer there is for us to kind of call it out together and then we're empowered to take those actions. So my next job is to talk to you about some of the improvements that we've made. Some of this is what we are required to report on, but most of it is what we want to report. We've made, as I've already said, improvements in our length of stay. So our median length of stay was 46 days this time last year. It's now 38 days. We've improved people who are clinically ready for discharge, so you're ready to go home. Used to be 13%. This time last year, it's now 8%. That really matters, because if you're ready to go home and you're stuck in hospital, that's not going to make you well. So that improvement really matters. But at the same time, we are seeing more people, we're seeing and treating more people in fewer beds. Again, an important improvement. In relation to digital, I really wanted to share some of this because some of it blows my mind. But the extended reality headsets for exposure-based therapy are specifically designed for anxiety-provoking situations. And then we've got a pilot going on in our CAMS service, so our child and adolescent mental health services, related to school-based anxiety and supporting children to have a really immersive experience in real-world educational scenarios. And we've seen some positive progress in there. And in relation to our adults with psychosis, on our wards, we're trying with 15 of our inpatients to give these headsets and reduce stress and anxiety, support people to adjust more meaningfully. And then in our rough sleepers mental health programme, we've got people going out, reaching out to people in their own spaces and making a difference. And with homelessness increasing, this is ever more important. And we've got real case examples where that's touched people's lives and got people back to work. So just having somebody go out and meeting you in your own space, talking to you about accommodation, getting that little space and trust over many, many sessions sometimes, of being patient enough to make that difference. Our cultural capability programs have been co-designed by staff and patients, and we launched this in July, and we've already seen over 50 clinicians taking part. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We will keep working on that. And it wouldn't be right if I didn't say that Springfield Park opened. Opening up Springfield Park to the community connected Tooting back to Earlsfield, the Wandsworth Commons, to Tooting Broadway in a way that had never been connected before, and opens and marks that commitment to anti-stigma. In relation to our people, we've got the lowest vacancy rate that we've had since I've been here. So our vacancy rate now less than 10%, and our turnover is under 11%. Our apprenticeship programme is absolutely thriving. So with over 70% taken up by our Black and Asian and ethnic minority staff. And this year we saw our mental health conference have more attendees than ever before. So 140 people came and talked about it. And the most wonderful thing about that was the connection that we made across our 5 boroughs that we serve, but also including Croydon and the borough that Sam serves, to really connect and share best practice. And that's in the context of the real challenge that our third and voluntary sector is having at the moment. Because it really is a challenging place when we talk about the challenge for the NHS. So I just want to, anybody who's here from our third and voluntary sector, thank you for taking the time out to be here. We will continue to work and do our best and very best to support you. Working in our community, our work as an anchor institution continues investing locally in jobs and field opportunities, and we remain at the heart of our community, really looking to make that step becoming a truly anti-stigma village. With over 200 people now trained in mental health first aid, but if those 200 people only tell 5 other people, it could make a seismic shift to South West London. And that movement, if we could make that movement across the NHS, we could really change things for people with mental health condition. Yes. Where next? Here we go. Where next? There we go. It's by nation. Our focus this year is on great care. So 2 main programmes, the adult patient journey programme, which really looks at how people move through our community services back and to be supported in the least restrictive areas possible, as well as looking at how people flow through our acute services. That programme also looks at how we support people with neurodiversity and learning disabilities. That becomes even more important with the changing focus. So whilst the 10-year plan strongly supports prevention and treatment in communities, it's relatively silent on neurodiversity and learning disability, and the importance of us keeping those people alive and advocating them in our mind as well as in their bodies is really, really critical. And our commitment to our children and young people's service development. So we've got our Richmond and Kingston services transitioning to us, and thinking about the wider pathway work for BYP. None of the great care is possible without ensuring that we have great staff and that those great staff are happy and healthy in their roles. So making the trust a great place to work is our second key priority. And we've got further work we are doing, not least our anti-racism work, but supporting staff and health and well-being, and helping staff to feel empowered to make a difference, to make decisions at the lowest possible level within the organisation, and to feel enabled to call out for falling great care. Ensuring sustainability, I've always, I've kind of reflected on this many times, but it doesn't sound that inspirational until you think about these buildings being about sustainability, not just on a green plan agenda, but on a financial plan agenda. And that financial stability allows great care and great place to work to carry on. So in terms of future ambitions, really clear what we're up to this year. Build the hospitals, finish building our hospitals, do some work on our current estate, see if we can, the old estate, to see what we can do to bring it up to scratch, but actually we've got a clear programme in relation to that. Making sure that our services provide quality care first and foremost, and that where it's relevant to our people, that we look to grow and develop our services, but only where it's going to make sense for people, not on an ambitious, we're going to be a bigger, better trust type thing. In relation to racial inequalities and breaking stigma, that's been littered through everything I've said today, and I will leave my colleagues to talk more about that. And with our communities, I think we have a real ambition this year. I know we have a real ambition this year to be stronger in our integrated neighbourhood teams where we may add a value, to be really thoughtful where we play into the South West London clinical strategy, and to be the best partners that we can be to make a difference to the people that we serve. So thank you again for all of you for being here. Thank you to our patients and carers and staff and partners. And I will continue to do my best to lead our organisation in line with our values, but in particular with compassion, collaboration and bravery. I forgot to introduce the next person. Who is? Philip. Philip's like kind of I don't know how I've got the money for them. I think that's
I'll give someone. Thank you, Vanessa. Wow, so much we've done, so much we're going to do. So good evening, everybody, both in the room and of course online, out of the room. And as it says on the screen, I'm Philip Murray, I'm Chief Finance Officer here. As we think of accounting, it is the ninth time I've stood in front of you, but it continues to be both a pleasure and a privilege to work with the great colleagues I've got, the clinical team out there, some of whom are in the room, so that we can do the best we can for our patients. And actually, that's what we're here for. That's what the NHS is for. If we do it right, hopefully our patients get the best experience. Now to the boring stuff. We have some statutory targets to hit. I need to get across to you, but we have actually hit them. And that's amazing. So many trusts in the NHS aren't managing to do that, what we have. I will, unfortunately, if you read out what's on the slide, I think it's important that I label really those achievements. As you'll see, we did hit our plan, which was a very small surplus. So in basic terms, we ended up with a bit more money in our bank account than we started with. There's a weirdity in here. But after technical adjustments, we made a bigger surplus. So those of you that listen to me every year, you will say the opposite of it. Yes, I do normally say the opposite, but there's some weirdities of accountancy that then so a slightly bigger number than the Department of Health actually give us credit for. So they take into account the 800,000, but when you look at our accounts, it shows a slightly bigger number of 1.9 million. It wasn't easy to get there. You'll see that we delivered nearly £18 million worth of savings. It's the people in this room, again, some of them staring at me now, who actually delivered those savings and being more efficient, seeing more patients and doing it using less taxpayers' money. It's that, as Vanessa said, that makes us more sustainable. And it's that that means that we will be here for a long time serving our population. There are some things that we have to do, and that's the next little bullet point here. We have to at least hit break even. That's our statutory duty, and you can see we did that. We get given a capital budget, and Ian, who sat at the back there, is not allowed to spend more than we're given. And thank you, Ian, you didn't. We have to bring a return on the taxpayers' money, 3.5%, and again, we did that. And lastly, and this is really important for our suppliers, some big, some small, we have to try and pay our invoices within 30 days. And you can see there that the value of the invoices received, we succeeded in doing that. So it's really important because our suppliers are sustainable. A few of you are eagle-eyed. You will notice that there's only 4 targets there. And in the prior years, that we've hit 5. It's not that we missed the 5th one, it was just dropped. So we didn't have to hit it. Thanks, Chair. So we're going to be used up a bit. It's at the Common Street and I've got pretty boxes and everything there. So, you've never become from an accountant. As you can see, if you keep track, you can see we kept growing a little bit. But as always, we're grateful for our local commissioners, South West London. They continue to be our main source of income, 71%, and in NHS England, 10%. It's these income flows and the growth that we do get, we always want to ensure that we can provide those services. What's also important is I emphasise where we spend that money a little bit more in a second. But 67%, as you see here, on pay costs. Mental health is fundamentally a people business. I say this every year, it is a fundamentally people business. We don't have sexy bits of kit and theatres and things. It's about the people that see the patients. And if they do their jobs right, we deliver a much better care. And that's why it's so important that we spend as much as we can on our staff and on our clinical staff. So it's pleasing to see that we managed to do that again. Just to emphasise that point, what you can see here is that we increased marginally the amount of money we spend on clinical care costs. You can see there it's gone up from 81% to 82% of our spend. The cost of our buildings, although Ian tries manually, it's hard for him to reduce the overall cost of running these lovely buildings, but we do work on that. And we're actually spending a little bit less on the support infrastructure behind the scenes. So hopefully you think that's a good sign. We're investing as much as we can in our clinical services, which, as I said, is the only way that we can support our patients. as Vanessa said, we're always proud and pleased to be in this building and the one opposite and showing it off. Of course, that's done and dusted. What we've now got to do is to deliver the rest of our estate modernisation. So during the year, you can see we spent nearly £30 million. Yeah, you see, and he's spending all this money on moving the Tolworth development forward, progressing the Barnes development. And we're hoping this year we'll also open the Richmond Law new development as well. Of course, as Vanessa said, not all of our estates new. It's really important we keep the old estate moving, invest in that as far as we can, and also our digital technology, because if we don't keep pace with the digital technology, we won't help our clinical staff be more efficient, and we won't give the best experience we can for our patients. And you've heard Vanessa give a really good example of how some of that digital innovation is really helping our younger patients. And I won't give you the figures you can see there, but we spent nearly just over £5 million on our underlying estate digital fabric. Lastly, you're nearly done with me, and I'll hand over some really interesting stuff that Sharon will talk about. Vanessa's already alluded to sustainability, and sustainability takes many forms. For some, it means green, it means carbon footprint. For others, it means finances. But of course, for us as well, we need workforce sustainability. Without the workforce sustainability and the financial sustainability, we can't possibly run a good organisation. And it is good. The CQC have told us it's good, and we know it's good. I strongly believe that if we do the right thing by our patients, we get the right treatment at the right time, the first time, we will treat our patients correctly, give them the best experience, but we'll do it in the cheapest possible way, meaning we can reinvest money in additional patient care. But this has already given us some things that we're doing, and what you'll see here on this screen, I'm doing my weather forecaster now, I'm pointing at the map, is that if we see those things through, I fundamentally believe that we will be able as a trust to become more sustainable, and we will then be able to be even better. So it's delivering the adult patient journey that Vanessa said, reducing our length of stay, making sure we treat our patients in the least restrictive way, giving our staff the best experience. They want to come and work here, and they don't want to leave and go and work in other places, because that continuity of care will give our patients an even better experience. So I'm hopeful that through doing all the things that we can support, and I can support the finance lead here, we will, in the future, provide better healthcare than we do today. Thank you for listening. I'm going to hand over to Sharon, who's going to tell you some really interesting policy stuff.
So, good evening, everybody, and lovely to see you all, and thank you for coming. So, I am Sharon Spain. I'm Chief Nursing Officer for the organisation, for those of you who know me. I hope you've just got my slides as well. Very exciting. So, it's really around an early year in quality. So, really lucky this year. For those of you who have seen our quality account, we're really lucky. We had some amazing co-production, some amazing service users who got involved with it and made the documents really user-friendly, I suppose, really readable. They got rid of all of the jargon, and it has been really well received, and well received by our patients and our carers. So, yeah, thank you for that. We've made a lot of progress on our top 3 priorities. I think Vanessa and I will touch them. So, great place for care, and a great place to work. We have new innovations which will support the quality of care. We've got lots of new innovations, but some that I just wanted to mention was the increase around our physical health care. And we know that Billy's going to talk about health inequality, and we know that our patients will often neglect the physical health care. So it's really important that while we the right training, the right staff and the right resources to help our patients with that. Also, we've been really lucky. We've introduced a new senior OT and senior nurse into leadership roles to support with learning disability and autism across our inpatient services, which is going to have a massive impact on our patients there. Yeah, we've started our lived experience and co-production. We have now got lived experience memories and carers in, I would say, nearly every new project that we get hands-on. So every new project that we take on, and have included them in any other projects. Also, on most of our meetings, and if not, we will intend to get them on all of our meetings. I will go through the health inequalities again, because I know that's going to, it's been mentioned, and I think we will talk some more about that. What I will mention is the improvements in the experience in our CQC Community Mental Health Survey. So we have done that year on year. We've just continued to do some of the work on our improvements from last year, and it's just been relaunched again this year. So if any of you have people in the community who've received it, please do fill it in, because it's really important we get that feedback. So on our feedback, that was helpful to say what we've done. So the feedback from our community is that they want better care plans, the care plans to be more relevant. So we have introduced a new dialogue of care plans, which are going to be co-produced. They'll be working with families, working with a holistic part of the patient's care. We said families and carers should be more involved. We have introduced a new family carer network into each borough. I was at the Kingston Carers network yesterday evening, and really powerful to hear some feedback from our carers. It's really important, and we need to continue that work. You said that you wanted more support while you were waiting, and we have provided a lot more scrutiny and support around people on a waiting list. We know that the waiting lists are long and can be quite frustrating, but we have got regular check-ins, and we've got improved our website. We've got a lot more information about how to stay well and how to stay safe when you are on a waiting list. We wanted more fast, reliable support within the crisis, and we have improved responsiveness in our crisis line. But also there is some work in our AUC, our acute and urgent care service line, to really enhance our crisis interventions out of hours and how we give some more support there. And yeah, treatment with dignity and respect international. So we've done a lot of work around that, and I think dignity and respect and compassion is really important. And again, I think using our service users, what I know using our service users and our care is really valuable to get that real-time feedback from us. So yes, that's how important it is for you to help us with any of our surveys, because we do listen and we do make changes. So yeah, for our policy priorities, so the very ones are care plan, our care program approach, which we are actually trying to move away from. So we want care to be much more holistic and much more inclusive for the patients. So we will move to having a named key worker rather than care coordinator. So that person will be tailored to your individual need. So it's not always going to be an your care coordinator if that's not what your individual need is. You will be looked after by the whole team. Your care plans will be personalised, and then the carers and families will be involved. So that's the feedback that you've given us. So improving access for people from underrepresented groups. Our health inequality strategy is going to tackle that. And what we are doing is improving the support for people with serious mental illness, closing the treatment gap. Vanessa spoke about the use of force. That's really positive. It's really positive. Firstly, that we recognise that there's a discrepancy within people who are being restrained, and we're doing something about it. And within that, we are using our patient care experience. So yeah, and then thirdly, our reducing our restricted practices, talking again very much about the use of detention of people, the length of stay for people with disproportionate, the restraints, the seclusions. All of that is work that we want to do to reduce those inequalities. So we've introduced mental health mediators and debriefers, which work really well to help people and staff understand what the actual experience is of being restrained. Self-awareness, reducing the length of stay, as I said, and the overall restraint. So, and just finally, around our quality, this is our aim. which would accept consumers into improve the quality of our services, making sure that they're accessible and they deliver the equitable outcomes and experience to a step change in our fundamental standards of care, which are incredibly important to us. If we get our fundamental standards of care right, the rest will follow through. Thank you very much. Please,
Sorry, I think people might not have heard online my instructions about the Q&A later. So do you mind if I just remind people online? Sorry. And so if you're online, I don't think you heard me earlier, but if you want to raise a question, you'll get a chance at the end of the session from about 7 o'clock, at which point you'll be able to turn your cameras on and you'll be able to put your digital hand up and ask a question. If you want to write your question down, there's a Q&A button at the top of the screen or around your screen, and you'll be able to type it in there, and then we'll look at it and make sure that we address it. We won't get the chance to address all of the questions today. We've only got a limited time, but we will write out to everybody and make sure that we answer the questions when we send out the slides. Thank you. Sorry, Anne.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you very much to Vanessa, Philip and Sharon. It's quite a lot of information packed into what they said to you. So as Jenna was saying, there will be an opportunity later to ask questions on that. But this year we thought we'd do something slightly different. So we've introduced a specific question session for our patients and carers. So we've got, I think, 6 patients and carers who've submitted questions, and we've got people on standby to answer them. So the first question is from Sammy. Now, I did see Sammy earlier. Do you want Sammy to turn the microphone on and ask your question? And then Ashton is going to answer. So Sammy. Is the microphone not working?
No, it is. We have a representative who's going to ask the question.
Okay.
Sorry, 2 seconds.
Brilliant. Are you going to ask a question?
Waiting question.
On behalf of Sammy, what can our trust do to improve after discharge care for patients?
Thank you very much, Sammy. And Ashton, you're going to go answering that.
I will do. Thank you. I will stand so Simon can see me. So, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashton Julie. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Trust. Sammy, thank you very much for your question. One of the main things I think, as we've had in the introductions, from Anne and Vanessa and Sharon touched on this, is our real clear focus on delivering great care. I think that's really important because we're doing that through our adult patient journey program, and that means we want to make sure that patients are at the center of everything that we do. So for me, it's really about true collaboration with our patients, with our carers, but we also want to see stronger collaboration between our teams, with our inpatient teams and our community teams. So if you come into hospital, we want to make sure that we are looking at your needs and what you require. Hospital right from the moment when you arrive in hospital. So I think that kind of focus and purposeful development missions is something that we've been really looking to build on and continue working on with our staff teams, our clinical teams, ensuring that that is at the centre of what we do. So planning starts from the moment that someone comes into hospital, being clear on what their needs are, and working with you throughout that admission to support you towards that journey. But I think most importantly, it's making sure that the community support that you have stays engaged in your care right throughout your journey in hospital. Also, the involvement of families and carers is really critical. Cannot emphasize that enough. They know our patients, our service users best. It's useful that we rely on that support and the input that they provide throughout your care journey. We also mentioned care plans, and I'll just refer to it as care plans. And I think that's really important, particularly as you transition to the community, that we really are clear in terms of what your care plan has in terms of support needs, safety plans, but also what's needed to support you to stay within the community. I think that's critical. But I think while people are willing to focus also on how we ensure that we've got really clear plans and we understand their needs and we work with people during those times when they're well, we think about what works best for them and ensure that's built into the care and support that they receive while they're in hospital and while they remain in community as well. So I think that we need to do that consistently. And continue. I think another key thing just to close off would be just listening and being willing to listen and receive feedback. So when you tell us something is not working, we need to be willing to hear that and work with you to get that right. So that it supports you in the best possible way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. So the next question is from Lee, who I believe is in the room. And Helen Miles, Head of Therapies Co-Production Involvement, is on standby to answer your question, Lee, if you'd like to.
Yes, the question is thank you. Can you give one concrete example from the past year where co-production with patients and service users generally changed decision, policy or service? And what that specific co-production, what would that specific co-production mean for conformity?
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Lee, for asking that question, because you've given us the chance to go up, basically, and demonstrate some of the really positive work that's happened over the last year. So I think you will see from the presentation that service user and care involvement is embedded in everything we do across the trust. Over the last year, we increased the amount of people we've got on the involvement register. We're now at almost 500. I noticed it was 405 on your slide, but it's gone up since then. We've had 2,000 different paid opportunities for people working within the trust. And we have had, sorry, I need to put my glasses on, isn't it? Almost 4,600 hours of time. And I think with that, that includes people who volunteer with us, who give free time, our paid peer support workers, and obviously our experienced members. So one, you've asked for concrete examples, and I think what I would say is it's happening every day around us. One of the major changes we've done this year is we've introduced the lived experience forum, which is a dedicated space for that to bring new developments and services to be discussed with our experts. Can you hear me? Closer to my phone. Don't really have a problem. I'm not talking loud enough. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, sorry. So yes, we've got a dedicated space, the Lived Experience Forum, which means that all new projects are discussed right at the beginning, so that we are not just paying lip service to co-production. It's happening right from day one, and our Lived Experience members are shaping projects and how they develop. And your involvement in it. So that's something we're really proud of. Every day there are interviews and recruitment that takes place, and we have our lived experience members as part of those panels, so that we are getting the right staff into the trust who have the right attitude and want to co-produce. So a really positive example that we have done this year is across the eating disorder services. where it was noted that there were real gaps with how we are giving information to carers. And our service users and carers worked very collaboratively with staff to ensure that we produced a number of informative videos, that we worked with carers, and were able to ensure that everyone knew about our pathway. So that's a very concrete, positive change. I'm not going to say it's perfect, it's a journey that we're all on around culture change. There's work to be done, but hopefully you will see that we made real improvements.
Thank you very much, Helen. And when people respond, you have to get uncomfortably close to the microphone. I know you just have to get over your hand up over it, get close, because it's people online that aren't able to hear rather than people in the room. So thank you for that. Our next question is from Anna, and she's actually online, so I will read her question out. But I should have Robert Baxter, one of our employment specialists, on standby, so get ready to hug your microphone. So Anna's question is, what employment support can be offered to people with a mental illness who are trying to find a part-time job? Do you have a hub of potential employers that you can put the job seeker in touch with, and is tailored support available? Plug your microphone, go for it, Robert.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Anna for asking the question. I was really pleased to have it asked because we are a relatively small part of the service, but certainly a part which we feel is growing in importance, certainly in the current economic climate, and to our side, the government wants to do around helping people back into work. We have a couple of different parts of our employment offer, and one of the reasons why we feel it's really important, a lot of the talk we've had today has been about inequality and how we can balance that. And there's certainly no greater inequality than when you look at the employment rate for people with mental illness, and particularly severe mental illness, against the general population. So we have two different parts of our employment service. We have our IPS, Individual Placement Support Service, which exists in secondary care. And then we have our Talking Therapies Employment Service, which is open to anyone who's on waiting list or accessing therapy with Talking Therapies. Everything we do on our employment provision is tailored and bespoke, and we do that because we feel that's the best way to offer support. We know that every single person we work with is an individual. Everyone has a different journey that they've gone on to get to where they are now, and if that leads them to being either unemployed or employed and maybe facing challenges, we want to be there to help them. So we will work with both those groups. If somebody who is unemployed, we will work with them and help support them into sustainable and manageable employment, whether that's full-time, part-time, and everything we do is zero exclusion. It doesn't matter how job ready someone is, how long someone might have been unemployed for, whether it's maybe their first job. We want to work with people to do that. And then for our retention side of things, helping people stay in work. If someone's experiencing difficulty in their job as a result of their mental illness, or if somebody perhaps is signed off sick and needs help to return to work or considering adjustments in the workplace, we'll work with their employers and work with them to help achieve that. Now, one of the parts of the question is around the work we do with employers, which is a really, really important part of what we think makes us stand out against other employment services which exist within our communities. We build and base our service on the work we do with employers. We spoke about how we need to focus everything on each individual, and that's one of the reasons why we don't have a kind of a pool of employers that we dip into and out of, because actually every individual we work with wants to work for a different employer in a different industry, and so we try and keep all of those relationships specific to the individual. We will reach out and help service users to find a suitable employer. We'll work with the employers. In that respect, we actually become as important to the employer as we do to the service user. And we know that by us having a long-standing relationship with an employer, it can really help the chances of them not only being able to obtain employment, but sustaining that employment for a meaningful amount of time. And, you know, that had a huge impact, not just on mental health and well-being, but has an impact on physical health, social relationships, finances of people, and really kind of gives a sense of belonging and independence that people might otherwise not have if they're facing long-term unemployment. I think just one other thing to bring down, and the question came specifically relating to her son, but we've actually on one of our services, so if Anna is on the call, I'd happily like to extend my contact details to reach out and talk more individually about that.
Thank you very much, Robert. That's a very, very clear answer. I'll encourage answers to be succinct if they can, because we are running a little bit, not down to any of you at all, but we're running a little bit behind schedule. So we now have two questions from Carolyn, who I understand is in the room. So I'm looking around for somebody. Can't see.
Maybe we can.
She may not have, with all the transport difficulties. Anyway, her first question is, what is the significance of the new Mental Health Act? And Billy has kindly agreed to respond to this one. Over the microphone, Billy, isn't the answer.
Okay. Thanks, Carolyn, for the. That's pretty much what it is, isn't it? Yeah. We've got two more. Right. Thanks for the question, Carolyn. It's incredibly important. The new Mental Health Act is like a once in a generation opportunity to actually fundamentally change how we're going to deliver mental health services. And we need to take that opportunity, right? I'm the Chief Medical Officer of the Trust, and I'm a practicing psychiatrist, and I'm an approved clinician with respect to the Mental Health Act, right? And so it's going to change the way that I practice. It's going to change the way that my colleagues practice within this room. And the headline or the strapline that I want you to think about when it comes to the new Mental Health Act is that it's about shifting the focus of care away from people like me, the approved clinicians, and back to patients and their families. So the focus is really about improving collaboration. And so there's lots of detail within the Mental Health Act of the changes that might happen. So there's going to be a much stronger focus on advanced decisions. So patients and their families being really clear about what treatments they would like if they were becoming unwell. There's a much stronger focus on reviewing the use of the Mental Health Act earlier, so patients have rights to reviews of their care and to prevent them staying in hospital longer than necessary. And there's a really strong focus on reducing inequalities because it was recognised across the UK, people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds are much more likely to be detained under the Mental Health Act and stay longer. So there's measures to impact on that. So yeah, we've got to get ready, right? We've got to get ready to change our care. And we've got to be prepared to change our clinical practice if we're going to get the value out of this. But I know that our mental health law governance group is working on that, but we need to work with our community to get it right if we're going to get the proper value out of it.
Thank you very much, Billy. And Carolyn's second question, which I understand Rachel Tucker, who is the head of psychology and psychotherapies for CAMS. I can see Rachel getting ready. So the question is, what is being done to address the long waiting lists in children and young people's services? Thank you, Rachel.
That works.
How's that? Better. Okay. Carolyn's not here, I assume, but excellent question, Carolyn. I think as a parent and an aunt, that would be probably the first question I would be asking mental health services. So thank you very much for that. My name is Rachel Tucker. I'm head of psychology and psychotherapy for CAMS and eating disorders. But I'm also a practicing psychologist who has been working in CAMS for 25 years. And I think it's safe to say that both nationally and locally, we've had unprecedented demand for child mental health services. And there's kind of two layers to that. One is around an increase in mental health difficulties that require services. But we've also had a really big increase in the demand for neurodevelopmental assessments. So that's assessments for things like ADHD or autism assessments. And actually, it makes up more than half our referrals to our services. And in some of our boroughs, it's about 75%. So we've got a lot of work to do. And before I talk about some of the things that we're doing, I'd just like to say that a couple of years ago, South London Citizens gave us some feedback about having some of our waiting times more transparent and on our website. So for Carolyn and anyone else who wants to look at our waiting time, you can now find them on there. And I suppose in the last 2 years, just to say that our waiting times for therapies and for psychiatry was in the many hundreds. And I went to have a look yesterday. I'm not sure if it's updated on the website, but they're now in single or double figures for many of our boroughs. And some of those changes have come about because we've been fortunate enough to invest in frontline clinicians, but also through some of the work that we've been touched on today around kind of retaining the staff that we've got. I can't say how important that is, being able to have continuity of services. So going back to sort of some of the stuff we're doing around our demands for neurodevelopmental assessments, we've had some extra funding come from our integrated care board to help us employ more clinicians to address those ways. We've also had, with the increase in certainly for ADHD assessments, we've got a really big backlog of young people who are waiting to have ADHD titration. That's to think about special medication. And in Kingston and Richmond, we've been fortunate enough to pilot non-medical provider roles. And we're hoping to roll that out across all the other 5 boroughs, because that's made real inroads, I think 60% or something, into the kind of rates for that particular ADHD medication. I know you want me to use the things and just go on about it kind of all evening, but just to think about other inroads we're doing is we have developed new roles in primary care, so trying to increase access, but also early signposting within GP practices. And we've also piloting something in Sutton around a sort of needs-based support for children and young people who might be waiting for a kind of neurodevelopmental assessment, so that they get support earlier in these sort of path models. And we're also rolling out a series of kind of workshops for people while they're waiting, as well as checking calls and a whole list of resources that are available on our website. I think the time maybe of the essence, but I would just like to invite Carolyn and anyone else who's got any questions, that they're more than welcome to get in touch with our comms team and follow up afterwards. Thank you very much, Rachel. I love the passion for the work and the fact that you've got so much you want to say. And I don't want to shortchange this section because it's a really important part of our annual meeting. But so thank you for that. And I'm sure some people will follow up with you afterwards. So the last question is from John from the Involvement Network. And I don't think John has managed to make it to the meeting. So I will read the question, and Uju is I saw it somewhere, yeah. Is on standby to respond. So the question is, how will total community living be supported and provided by South West London and St George's Trust? June.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Uju Ujuku. I'm a consultant psychiatrist and clinical director for the community service line. John, thank you for your question. I understood your question to mean how do we provide holistic care and also work with different sectors to make sure that our service users are supported in the community. So we talk a little bit about some of the work we've done in the community service line for the last 3 years. We have transformed our services. So our community mental health team has become what we call community integrated recovery hubs in the community. An essential role is really to think about how we work with our various partners, community sector partners particularly, to make sure we provide that holistic care. We already have about employment support. So similarly, with that expansion, our teams have become much better in working with our PCSK organizations to provide support and to provide care. We have a range of roles, welfare benefit support, provide care. But I think in terms of the question also, how we make sure that we work in a very collaborative fashion across sectors. So that's still work in progress, but we have started that journey and we have the structures to do it. But it's a journey that we will keep doing it. And at the heart of it is our patients and making sure we listen to what they're saying, and also using our dialogue care plans to be able to pick out what is really crucial, what's really important for the patients, and then focusing on delivering the services. I hope that answers your question, John.
Well, I hope so too. Thank you very much, Uju. I'm sure John can come back to me if he wants more information. So thank you very much to all of the people who asked such thoughtful questions, and thank you very much for those responses. So it's now a great opportunity for us. I think you said at the beginning that today is World Suicide Prevention Day, and we have with us today people from Whole of Hope. We've got Jocelyn Trivia, who is our Trust Suicide Prevention Lead, and we have Joe Lambert, who is from Whole of Hope. So we have someone else who's not on my sheet, but it's very welcome. So if I can hand over to you to do your bit. Thank you very much.
I'm hoping we've still got 10 minutes. But we are spot on 10 minutes, if not much talking from us. But we brought Lee up because I didn't know he was going to be here, and he's a member of the Hope. So I'm just been already, I'm just been to prepare the Trust Suicide Prevention Lead. And I have to make sure I don't. Joe?
Hi, I'm Jo. I'm a co-founder alongside another co-founder here.
I'm Lee. I've got experience in suicide.
Okay, so we're just going to talk you through the initiatives in relation to this. So who is all the Hope? We'll be very quick. We've got Lee, we've got Joel, and we've got Doris, Celine, Leanne and Emily, which you'll see on the clip. And they're a group of people with experience of being impacted by suicide, survivors of attempts to take their own life, and continually on a daily basis struggling to keep safe. It is, and we share this, but basically the overall aim of all the Hope and the vision, and this is the front and foremost of our Trust Suicide Prevention Strategy. I don't know if everybody else is hearing me twice, but I am. We're not, thank you. So we're just going to tell you two things. One, its inception, and then the way forward. And as you leave today, you will hear the full version of the new choir version of the Hope.
Within South West London, there were areas that were reporting concerns about the management of suicide and the increase of suicides reported in schools, and how British Transport Police and schools could work to better understand this. If we want to look at changing attitudes, changing behaviours, challenging stigma, if we use the voice of people who've been there, then that's the most rich learning we can get.
We're co-producing Hold the Hope with a group of people that have lived experience of suicide.
The whole project has been really exciting, and I mean, it's amazing what we've achieved together. I'm really proud of it.
Once that poem was in front of us, we all looked at each other and said, this is it. This is our narrative.
Hold this space for me. Accept my torment. Stay alongside, hide your discomfort. When I mention thoughts of suicide, connect, reflect and validate, and hold the hope for me.
And that was its inception, about 2 years now in progress. And as you'll hear on the next bit, we've been rolling out the sessions within the community as well as within the trust. And now you're going to hear about the next conception of All the Hope, which is about supporting staff. But rather than us talking to you, it's all explained here, or better, less boring.
My name's Jo. I'm a lived experience voice for South West London and St George's NHS Mental Health Trust. I started as part of the Lived Experience Network, and I am co-founder of Hold the Hope, a suicide awareness project. And more recently, I became employed staff. I go into the services with consultant nurse Sonia Sandu presenting our Hold the Hope Suicide Awareness Project, which is a creative approach to upskilling of how to support someone in a suicidal crisis through a lived experience lens. We felt very strongly that we would like the hope to be heard as well as held.
Hearing it all come together. What's amazing about this piece of work is the collaboration, how it's bringing people from different areas who identify with the topic, and how it's grown from the beginning from people's lived experience. And that's what I think is so amazing about this project so far.
What is Hold the Hope? It's a group of people with a lived experience of suicide. So either survivors of attempts to take their own life, or family members of those who have taken their own lives, as well as family members of those who are still on a daily basis struggling and have feelings frequently of wanting to kill themselves. I suppose its uniqueness is that it's the voices of those that are still here, as opposed to those from the loved ones of those who've been left behind. I think that's a different lens. It's a different lens that people are in the here and now, and trying to tell people this will help us to prevent when we are in crisis and feeling that low.
This is a pilot project where we wanted to offer our clinicians and our staff involved in mental health service delivery a chance to support their own nervous systems through song. Singing can improve vagal tone, which helps you to transition easily from a stress state, a threat state, an adrenaline state into a calm state.
I think the lady behind this, championing this, spearheading this, Jo, is she's a visionary, man. She's truly turned an ashy story into beauty. Praise God, that's very inspiring, and the world that she has come out of to create a new one is just, it's amazing. This poetry, in literary form, audible form, wearable form, something so, a season that must have, horrible. She's come out with such beautiful, amazing things.
The essence of Hold the Hope. Bringing people together, creating a harmony, hope, and a different energy. And I think that, again, across clinicians, across clients, families, friends, loved ones, this is something we need to create, that connection. Loneliness is a really, especially in troubled times nowadays, I think it's something that we all should be mindful of. So connection, hope, revalidate, all of that really brings in the essence of today. And so, yeah, so humbled to be a part of this project today.
Connect, reflect, validate, which is what they've come up with, will make a difference to them.
And it's amazing because when you think about what Hold the Hope actually means, what's amazing about what's been created by all of who you've mentioned is really making everyone involved. It's everyone's business. Suicide prevention is everyone's business. It's not, it just doesn't discriminate against race, colour, creed, any of that. And there's something really powerful in coming back to basics and not the usual PowerPoint presentations. And I think that's what's really different about this. It's lived experience and that lens that it comes through, which is just, amazing.
Observe my toil and share my pain. Help me believe that things can change. Can you turn stigma on it? Can you turn stigma on it?
So we're on our 10 minutes. You will hear the full song on your way out. So if you want to hang around for 6 minutes, I think it is, then feel free to listen and watch this space. This particular part of the project is to support carers, staff, and there will be a call out for choir members. And then you have to say there's a BGT application in the process. So anyone wants to meet Anton Deckhouse, not something help. Come and join the choir.
Follow that, Billy.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the video. I just thought, Monica, did you want to introduce yourself? I've introduced myself already. Do you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Mona Ahmed. I'm a forensic psychiatrist by background, and from the 1st of August, I took on the role of Associate Director for Health Inequalities alongside Emda Pak, who's not in this evening. He's the Associate Clinical Director.
So welcome on, and Mona's role as Associate Director for Health Inequalities, we think it's one of the first, if not the first, role that's had in the mental health trust in in England. So we're innovating in health inequalities here within our trust. We talked about it a lot this evening already, but what are they? What are health inequalities? I think the term can get bandied around quite a lot, but we're not always talking about the same thing. This bit in the pink here, the sort of writing is so small. This is the definition from NHS England. Unfair and avoidable differences in health and between different groups in society. So, what groups? Lots of different groups. One of the things I remind my colleagues of sometimes is that people with serious mental illness are a group that experience health inequality, right? So, if you've got schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depression, you're going to die on average 15 to 20 years younger than the general population, right? That's unfair inequality. And there's lots of reasons behind that. We know those conditions carry a range of complex physical health and morbidities. People with serious mental illness are more likely to smoke, more likely to drink alcohol. They're less likely to be in employment. So there's lots of drivers behind that inequity, but they're unfair. And it can be uncomfortable talking about health inequalities because we in health care services contribute to them, where we're not addressing those inequities, we're kind of alluding with them, right? So if we, the main organisation that tries to treat mental illness within South West London, and although you've heard some stats today where we've tried to improve access rates for different groups, we've made some improvements for Black people accessing some of our mental health services. The flip of that is that there's still an inequality, there's still an unfair experience for some people in getting access to our services, right? So I don't want to kind of gloss over that, I don't want to gloss over that because we have made some progress, but there's much more to do on addressing health inequalities, and we're really committed to do that. We'll tell you a little bit about the health inequalities strategic plan today. Anna and I rehearsed this last night, trying to get down to 10 minutes because there's so much that we can talk to you about health inequality, but we're going to give you some highlights, but we're around all evening to talk about it some more. The health inequality strategic plan is unapologetically focusing on trying to reduce racial disparities. Because we in South West London have a diverse community, don't we? An ethnically diverse community, probably one of the most diverse communities in England, probably one of the most diverse communities on the planet, right? If you think about it. So we've got to get better at serving the range of different people that live within South West London. And you've heard lots of data tonight about disparities, different ethnic backgrounds, so we want to do more. We've done some good work. We've developed some interventions that have made a difference, but progress is slow, and we want to keep moving forward. And this is the full plan you can download off our website. There's loads of the pages. It's summarised on one slide, right? But the vision is that we want to dispel the inequality, right, and make sure that everybody, regardless of background, has full access to our services. Our services are culturally sensitive, that we deliver high quality care for all. And we recognise we can only do that through strong partnerships within our community. We're experts at treating mental illness, but we can't do that on our own unless we're also addressing the drivers of inequality within our community. So we need to make sure that we're working with local employers, we're working with social care, we're working with the charity sector to try to ensure that there's equality within South West London, right? So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm just going to take you through some of the data improvements that we're working at.
I'm going to take us through some of the progress so far that actually predates my joining the team, and think about also the focus of the next 12 months. So, an area where there has been quite a lot of improvement is around the question of access for Black patients. So we can actually say that Black patients have higher access rates to our mental health services relative to their population size. And I can say a bit more about that if we've got some time later. We've seen a lot of improvements in access to talking therapies for Black communities and for Black and Asian children and young people in particular. So that does sound really positive that access is improving for Black patients, but what it doesn't tell us is whether or not this access is actually timely. Because what we know is that there can be delays and barriers to access for Black and minority ethnic communities, which means that quite often the window for early intervention is missed. And then patients are met with a more restrictive or coercive interventions, or coming through to mental health services being detained on the Section of the Mental Health Act or by the criminal justice system. So there's still quite a lot of work, and the focus of the next 12 months is around identifying what the top access barriers are, understanding those and working to eliminate them. There's a significant overall reduction in restrictive interventions, and this is quite an important area, and the following slide looks into that in a bit more detail. Section 136 detention, so that's the detention under the Mental Health Act that the police have powers to enact. That's fallen year on year. This year it's fallen, in the last 12 months, it's fallen from 150 to 119. But what we can't say is that this reduction is accounted for by Black and minority ethnic patients, because Black patients in particular are still overrepresented in that group, not just within our trust, but nationally. We also know that patients who are Black experience poorer outcomes in a number of areas. Increased length of stay, for instance, which the adult patient journey work is working to address. They have higher readmission rates, and they also experience delays in early intervention for psychosis, as I mentioned. Another area that we need to improve, I mean, Billy spoke a moment ago about the disparity in life expectancy for patients experiencing enduring mental illness, and that's why it's so crucial to address the improvements in rates of physical health assessments within 7 days. And there have been some improvements in that in the past 12 months, but not nearly enough. The other area where there is still room for improvement is response and outcomes to talking therapies. So we know that Black patients and Asian patients tend to have lower reliable recovery and reliable improvement rates when it comes to talking therapies. So this is a little bit more information about restrictive interventions over the last 12 months. So there's been a significant reduction of around a third in seclusion use. So seclusion is a last resort intervention that we use. And positively, that reduction is accounted for by Black patients. So there's the reduction in Black patients experiencing seclusion come down by 47.5%. But we do need to improve our data recording, because as you can see, there's been an increase in those in patients who are recorded as other. As we heard earlier, overall prone restraints has reduced significantly, and again, that's borne out in the experience of Black and Asian patients as well. So there has been a lot of work that's been happening to close that gap in the experience and the outcomes that patients who are Black and Asian experience. Adult Patient Journey Programme is looking at reducing the length of stay, and the crisis response for Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities as well. There's a crisis interventions review that's happening at the moment that's being co-produced with patients that the Health and Equalities team are involved in. We have involved peer debriefers, so peer support workers, to ensure that there's culturally appropriate peer debriefers following incidents. enabling our staff to have space to reflect and to consider trauma-informed care for both themselves and for our minority ethnic patients and acute urgent care services. Children and young people services who are delivering DBT, which is a type of talking therapy, dialectical behavioural therapy, are running a quality improvement project to think about why it is that the referrals and the access rates for Black young people into the service is reduced, to help us understand why that is and to address them. On Aquarius, the Children and Young People's Ward used a QI approach to minimise their restrictive practices, and I think that's a positive example of how co-production work did change practices. Talking Therapies Global Majority work, particularly in Sutton and Merton, is doing a lot of really positive work to think about the referral rates and the access rates for brain patients. And there has been improvement around engaging Black and minority ethnic carers around the use of patient stories and around discharge planning to inform the approach on wards as well. Underpinning all of this is cultural capability work, which is training to help our staff build understanding of how race, language, ethnicity can impact the experience of care and the way in which patients in those groups access services. This has begun already, and there's been a lot of positive feedback around from the staff that have undergone that training. So this is around improving cultural competence. And it was developed in conjunction with lived experience and patients from experts by experience from Black and minority ethnic groups. And this began earlier this year and is underway. So the following slide is some of the goals for the first 12 months. The year-on-year goals are included in the strategic plan, which I'm happy to sort of talk through after this, but these are some of the ones that I've picked out. So as I mentioned, identifying the access barriers that are experienced, and there's work underway with the acute and urgent care service, using questionnaires and listening groups, listening exercises, to understand access barriers for Black and minority ethnic patients. The development of health inequalities and projects and service applications that are to be decided into areas. Identifying best practice models for outreach and using pilots around those with experts by experience, and establishing a quality co-design forum to help inform that as well, and the recruitment of a data analyst to help us ensure that the interventions that we are developing are informed by the needs of the local population, just to ensure that they're impactful. Thank you.
We thank you, Mona. Thanks for your data. And we're reducing national again. It's going to talk to us about the adult patient journey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashton, as I said earlier, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the organisation. So this evening is ready to give you a quick update on our adult patient journey program. This is one of our kind of key priorities that sits under our various care department. One of the main is sort of our adult patient journey program. In back. It's all strange, yes. There we go. Experience, able to see feeling has been here a few more times. So we launched our adult patient learning program in 24-25, and really just wanted to launch a few of those areas of focus for our APJ program. So for us, the kind of leading forward driving principles around the APJ is ensuring that the care that we're delivering is purposeful. You heard me earlier in response and discussion talking about purposeful, purposeful care, and that's the core of the work that we're doing. But also ensuring that we're supporting patients that avoid crisis. So we know there's been a lot of people who turn up to A&Es, for example, in crisis. There's a real focus on us ensuring that we are working in this area to reduce the need for people to go to A&E, ensuring that there's real alternatives closer to home in the community, and also ensuring that we're mentioning about our crisis interaction. But also we want to ensure that care is timely and we're offering care in this situated environments. So we're really proud of the environments that we've worked that we've invested in. And they are essential for providing therapeutic care and recovery when they are needed. But also we want to ensure that people are remaining at home where possible, and that's supporting people stay well. Community, they can continue to vibe with the supporting the local community as well. But when people do present in any, as that's happened in some instances, we do want to make sure that people are receiving, responsive services from us, including those patients that we launch our community services. So, for example, we've got enhanced resource practitioners who work alongside our leads and psychiatry teams, so they will attend and support our leads and psychiatry teams to look at the patients that are known to our community teams to ensure that they've got the right support from teams and services that know them well. A key part of the safety is ensuring that the care is recoverable. So I think that's really important. Three elements really underpin some of this work and the principle that I've just touched on. This year, the planning guidance requires us to do a 10% reduction in 12-hour waits in A&E, and that's really important. We know that saying that we want to reduce the numbers of people taken up in A&E crisis. It's not the best place for anyone in crisis to be in the middle of an A&E. So that's a real focus for us to ensure that we are doing really core design of this work to make improvements in this area. Also working not just with our patients, but with our system partners as well, so our local authorities, our chief trust partners as well. I've tried on the numbers of patients attending A&E in crisis, but also a key part of how we're going to do that is redesigning our crisis, pathway. So this is the crisis response offer that we have in the organization, including home treatment teams. Our ambition is to have a 24/7 offer that's available and accessible throughout, so for our sector. And I think that's really important, ensure that we provide real alternatives to A&E. You've heard earlier on around the focus on reducing length of stay. That's really for us important because it ensures that we are building the capacity internally in our beds, so when patients need to come to hospital, they can access a bed. We do this work on length of stay, identify that those patients who are staying in hospital for a long time are staying in hospital for an exceedingly long time. And that's not right for patients. We want to make sure that we address any barriers that exist that are leading the patients in stuck in hospital and not being able to progress on their journey of recovery. So that's a focus piece of work that we've been doing since the start of the year. We're making really positive progress in this area, and so we have set ourselves ambitious target of reducing our length of stay by 26% during the course of this year. Probably one of the highest improvements any organization is committed to. But what has really come out of that is really through strong collaboration from all our clinicians, from our staff, to drive the medical improvements. So the safe discharge of patients from hospital will progress to almost destinations in a safe and planned way. And I think that's really important that we continue to do that. Another key area of focus for us has been the clinical rate of discharging patients. Sometimes patients get to, on their journey, they're optimized a lot of their need to be in hospital. However, for various other reasons, they simply cannot progress. And we pay attention to this area in the last few months. We currently have our lowest clinical rate of discharge patient numbers on our ward. Nationally, it's an 8% target of the overall patients going to hospital. As I said here today, we've achieved that target of 8%. That's really significant for us because it is a continuous improvement. And we can now see back and then think, that will change, that will shift based on demand and peaks. In terms of other challenges, in terms of finding more destinations, placements, accommodation, and other factors. So we're working really closely with our partners, with our local authorities to support our patients and ensure that we are addressing any barriers that leads to patients remaining in hospital. I think that's really important for us to continue to make an impact in that area. You already had earlier, Sharon, talk about dialogue care plans. It's a really important part in terms of the support our patients receive, both in hospital and in the community. And currently, we've been really focusing on our patients who have been on CPA to ensure that they all have dialogue care plans. I think as of today, 94% of those patients on CPA have a dialogue care plan. Our focus is to ensure that by the end of September, all our CPA patients have a dialogue care plan. We have more work to do to patients who are not on CPA. That's a bigger challenge, but we're committed. Our colleagues in the community service line are really working with collaboratively and ensuring that we have a plan to achieve that by the end of the year as well. We've had quite a lot on health inequalities. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these two slides, but just a point to make in terms of some of the improvements we're making on them today. So patients who in hospitals today are taking a week less than they would have done in January of this year. So that's a positive step, that's a positive direction. But when we look into that a bit more in depth, we know that their patients are actually still staying 2 weeks longer than our white patients in hospital. And we need to understand what drives that and what's sitting in that and what we can do to improve the experience and outcomes for those patients. We talked about the AMP as well as mentioned, we put some certificates there just to help demonstrate the level of challenge and focus that's needed again in this area. Let's move on quickly. I mentioned the progress we made so far this year on our dialogue care plans, achieving 94% for CPA. We are still working, as I said, on designing our process for our care pathway. We are in phase 1 of that at the moment. This work is going to be co-designed, co-produced, and we're doing a wider piece of work as well, supported by a national team, working with our system partners to ensure that the redesign of this pathway offers a real alternative and responsive services for communities when they request. We really continue to drive all the improvement work through quality implement initiatives. These have been really important in terms of driving ownership staff workforce, ensuring that they're generating raw ideas, we're empowering them to ensure that they're testing out that we may make and we can make improvements to the care and experience of our patients. And I think that's really helped us in terms of having that kind of shared and collective ownership on improving our length of stay position as well. We're less reliant on external beds. This is a key area of focus for us, and I'm really proud to see how our teams have worked really collaboratively together to ensure that we have achieved this. So we reduced our reliance on external beds, private beds from 41 to 18. That was our plan at the start of the year to ensure that we reduce that reliance, and we've got an ambition to go a bit further than that, and we're working on how we can achieve that. And that's really important. But also, in addition to that, we've ensured that in the 10th year, we've not had any adult acute patients placed in out-of-area beds. Again, the quality is important because we want to make sure that patients are receiving care closer to home, supported by services and staff that know them, where their families, such as have access to them and they have access to that support as well. The chart on the right-hand side just shows how the journey we've been on, and it's a journey that continues to improve. And we are optimistic that with the level of focus that we are applying to improving our length of stay position, that will achieve our 20% reduction by the end of the financial year. We were going to share with you a clip of some collaboration that we've done through Sunlight and Bravo Awards, and the work. But we really sure that this is included in the pack that we share just for time restriction. We're not able to play that here now, but if you can use the time, share the look and watch and see some of the positive and good work that our staff and patients have done to get our collaboration to new treatments. Thank you very much.
You don't let me use with slides, I'm not allowed to. So thank you very much, Ashton, for that. We've had a lot of input this evening, and we're always a bit too optimistic about how much input we can fit into 2 hours. But we are going to try and take some more general questions now. I don't know, generally, if it gets to 5:30, do we turn into a pumpkin, or could we run a few extra questions? And if there are, but absolutely understand if people need to leave, then that's fine. So we have a question from somebody who joined us online.
Yeah, thank you.
From Alan Moss, who's in the Kingston Mental Health Carers Forum. And we are going to try and get Alan to be able to read the question out. Now, my view is I'm going to give Ian a chance to have a go at some of this, and Amy to talk about the sort of, because we've heard from many of us about the sort of strategic direction in patient to community and so on. But let's Alan ask you a question.
Yeah.
Alan, you might have to take yourself off mute if you're able to do that. If it's, shall I read the question? Apologies for that. I didn't want to give the online people a chance to participate more actively. So the question is, I applaud the new inpatient facilities at Springfield and soon Wandsworth, which have been designed over many years. With the increasing instance of mental health problems being reported, together with greater recognition of comorbidity, I'm confident to argue that your inpatient provision will be adequate for the next 10 years. So I thought, Ian, you could say something about our modelling of the facilities, and Amy about some of the changes with shift community, if that works. And then if anybody else wants, but I do want to be able to take a question from the room. So Ian.
Thank you, Anne. As you were going to be brief, I was going to say very confident, but you clearly want more from me than that. So on modelling, as you would expect, we've done it over a number of years. The last couple of years, we've looked at what we need in order to meet the demands coming through. We've looked at how our interventions will, some of the stuff that you've heard from Ashton today, about how they've reduced our inpatient needs and pushed it into our community services. Those interventions have taken a grip, and we've remodelled our bed basis to see what we need. And again, as you heard from the slides Ashton in the place today, you've seen how length of stays are coming down currently. And we're on track to deliver the model that we had for the Wandsworth redevelopment when we opened the service in late 2027.
Thank you, Ian. Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I guess to add to what Ian has said, we know that we have seen increased demand. We know that we've seen increased complexity and increased acuity. What we've been trying to do is to work with partners and wider stakeholders across our system to think about how we provide care in the least restricted setting, close to home. And I think we've done that in a number of ways, not least through the transformation of our community adult mental health services with support through the NHS long-term plan over the last 5 years. That's involved additional role investment, it can involve changes to our practice, and additional peer support and voluntary sector organisations coming into our provision. So we feel quite confident, I think, that our community provision is well established. I guess secondly, there is the development of integrated care at neighbourhood level. which should see us working more cohesively with wider partners, particularly primary care and social care, to support people at an earlier stage in their pathway. And then finally, I guess there is work across all our partners to think about best supporting people with complex needs and actually being able to encourage and support a recovery journey that does not rely upon inpatient care. So there is much more to do. We are working in a very pressurised environment, but I think our services and our work with partners stand us in good stead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian and Amy. Is there a question from somebody in the room? Do you want to hold the microphone and ask your question?
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry if I'm not very well informed about the estate.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Say who you are and where you come from. Thank you.
My name is Sarah. I'm an ex-service user of this trust in the perinatal department. And I'm coming here to find out a little bit more about what's going on. So thank you all for sharing all such valuable information. I'm sorry if I'm not very well aware of what the Torworth development plans are, but my question is, does the trust have a short or long-term strategy to address the gap in the inpatient wards available, and more particularly for female PICU and mother and baby units?
Right, who wants to have a go at that? Go on, bless her. I'm checking now that this is one of the perinatal one. No.
It's that moment where everybody else looks up and down. Thank you for your interest and taking the time to come. It really matters that you use our service to come and facilitate this. So in relation to our female acute facilities, that is covered through our state mobilisation programme, so the work that Ian's just spoken about. Perhaps we can talk more about that in a moment. But I'm guessing at the hub of your question is how are we supporting an expansion to our perinatal healthcare to ensure that actually wherever possible people don't need an inpatient provision, but where it's needed it's accessible. We're working across with the South London partnerships with our colleagues at Slough and Oxley's. So as many may be aware, South London and Wolseley have a mother and baby unit. So we're improving the access and ability to access that facility, which is existing within South London. And in relation to a female PQ provision of psychiatric intensive care provision, we currently commission that provision externally to South London. The reason we're needing to do that is we don't have enough demand in South West London to run our own psychiatric intensive care unit. And we have looked and explored previously with colleagues across the wider South London footprint, that there was an ability for us to do something in a collaboration at that juncture. So if I'm honest, there wasn't an openness to do that, but we keep going back around that loop. I think the key to this though has to be the perinatal collaboration work, and I guess what I would invite, if you're interested, for you to become part of being one of the voices on that talks about what is needed for us to expand those types of services.
Okay, thank you. It's like Joe, is that? Yeah.
I wondered if it's okay.
Can you use the microphone? Oh, sorry.
I don't know if I need it.
No, you do, because people online won't be able to hear you.
I just wanted to say, I hope it's okay to come in and say that we are doing home to home with training midwives. So it's something that is a priority for us. We've got perinatal and suicide prevention strategy action plan that Lee and I and the other co-founders helped to draft. But we've got 2 sessions at Middlesex University with training midwives coming up. We're really excited about that. And we've also got home to home collaborations with community organisations that will be supporting parents. So although that's not directly related to what you asked about inpatient, I hope that that's helpful for you to know.
Thank you, Jo. That's really helpful.
Sorry, if I can just say something else. I think the bottom line of my question is just that It's great to hear that there might not be a need for such a ward, PICURE and MBU, but I think as someone who has experienced both of those wards, being sort of moved away from my local community, the local trust, and more particularly my first responsive care, so family and friends, was extremely difficult and deteriorating to their recovery. So it's great to hear that there's more preventative care around it. So yeah, it's just a thought.
Thank you, Sarah. Did you want to come back? I said no. Was there another question in the room? Graham first, and then I'll go to the lady with the stripy top. I don't know your name, I'm afraid, but you can tell us in a minute. Graham.
Yep, thank you very much. My name's Graham Kennedy. I run Sacred Heart's Be Well Hub in Wimbledon. My question really is, it's great to see all the developments that are going on within the trust, but if there's one thing that people outside the trust, whether that be community organisations or members of the public or members of the lived experience network could help you change, what would that be?
Right, I think that's not one for me, or one for the chief executive.
So if I could change one thing, it would be stigma. Yeah, actually, if I can change the biggest thing, because I think that the way in which we refer to mental health, we don't refer to physical health in the same way. Right, from the get-go, our people suffer greater inequalities than anyone else. So the one thing I'd ask the community to change is stigma. I think that's a really challenging one. And perhaps within that, let's be really specific. There are people with serious mental illness, and then there are people with mental health and wellbeing challenges, and they're two very different things. And I think we as a wider community need to get better at talking with more confidence about that, and making sure those with really serious mental illness and the most vulnerable in our population are genuinely thought about and held in our minds.
Thank you.
So, what difference would that make? Would it mean that those sorts of people would come forward more readily, or I'm just trying to understand because I know some people with stigma won't talk about the fact they've got a problem or the fact they've got an illness, but I'm assuming that stops them from accessing services, and therefore their illness is sustained. Is that about right?
I think that is right, but also if we lived in a society that was more tolerant of difference, that's one of the wonderful things about Springfield Village. Actually, people could live in that society and be different and carry out their lives normally. But when you have stigma, people feel that they need to hide away and not be themselves. And I think that's part of the difficulty. Some of it's about giving people more time to think things through, isn't it? And that we're a very impatient society, aren't we, at the moment? And we start at people who take a bit too long to do something. We don't understand that they might need that extra time. And that's part of being able to live in society as everybody else. You look sceptical.
I'm not sceptical. What I'm trying to work out is what we can do to help. So,
because I think some of the things that you're doing, like the Be Well Hub, I think is part of that answer, isn't it? A lot of those listening things where people can go and they can talk, and they might go in. In fact, one of the really great initiatives that came out of South London Listens was a football initiative where young men would go to play football. But there would be an opportunity for them to talk about how they're feeling and their mental health at the same time. And I think if we can create that kind of world, actually everybody will feel more comfortable in it.
Okay, so it's doing more of those sorts of...
I think that's a positive, yeah.
Organisations with those sorts of activities so people open up about how they're feeling.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I think that probably brings this, sorry,
Sorry. Not a question, but in praise of the employment specialist team, who I saw 15 years ago when I came out of hospital, and I now run the peer support coordinator for Sound Mind. And well done, yeah. Well, I've been for people who want to work as ward visitors, I go to them first over the job centre.
Thank you very much for that. And it's time now to say lots of thank yous, actually. A huge thank you to all of you for joining us this evening. And for those who joined online, it's probably not been quite as smooth as it might have been, but it was an option for those who couldn't get here because of the tube strike. Thank you for the questions and the contributions. Particular thank you to the questions from the Involvement Network and those who joined us, Helen, Rachel, Robert, Uju, who joined us to answer some of those questions. She's not here to hear it because she's actually dealing with a very live case. But thank you to Joe and to Lee from Hold the Hope and Justine, our suicide prevention lead. And of course, our amazing staff, patients, carers, who are behind so much of what we've spoken about tonight. What we do is delivered by our staff, and the people who work with us are co-production volunteers. So, Justine mentioned it earlier, there's an opportunity to hear the Hold the Hope's uplifting news song, which was recorded just last week. And I think Justine said it was about 6 minutes, and you've got 6 minutes. You can listen to it. Thank you very much, and I hope you have good journeys home and a lovely rest of the week.